Talk to the crowd. Tell us a little bit about what you do, where you've gone, how you've evolved.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was a...
Okay, so thank you very much.
Okay, that's good. I'm the typical guy that got destroyed by the old school teaching. I was a D1 ball player back east, and I remember working with a guy my freshman year, Pete Venturini, who led AAA for the White Sox in hitting. And he told me flat out, he's like, listen, you're too small to be a home run guy, to drive the baseball. So the first thing you got to think about is getting down in the ball. And that was the first time I really got that instruction, and pretty much destroyed my career. I mean, I started all 4 years and kind of lumbered through, but never drove the ball. Never was able to drive the ball and get locked into that. So, long story short, I was a sports writer for a while. I coached for a while, and now I work with hitters. And I also went to grad school for sports psychology, so I work with Ken Ravizza and really tried to get the mental aspect down. So I consult a lot of minor leaguers, more in the mental game. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm in Arizona. My place is called Hitter Haven. So a lot of youth hitters, a lot of high school hitters, some college guys, but really excited to be here. I was up all night last night, seriously, just reading about everything. And this is going to sound crazy, but one of my buddies said, I don't know about the going back thing. He's like a snake. He's talking about biology. He's like a snake coils back and goes. And so my butt's on the internet last night looking at snakes, okay? And guess what? They don't go back. They don't go back. They go right from here. So I thought that was fascinating, right? I mean, you think Trent was talking about, Trent's got a drill he calls the snake drill, where you kind of coil from back here. But guess what? If you go look at a snake, he doesn't coil. They coil up to protect themselves, but then they launch and they go. So I thought that was fascinating, really. So yeah, so I'm excited to be here. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
Come on, Garrett, your turn.
Could you imagine? I'm 2 o'clock in the morning.
Red Wing, Minnesota. Currently a high school coach there. Probably will always be a high school coach there. But my travels have brought me many places. I started out way back when in the internet hitting world, kind of in the .com era. Started. A gentleman by the name of Paul Nyman. He started Set Pro, and there's a lot of other people that came from that time. During that time, I've seen probably 20 some odd people, guaranteed 20, and traveled many, many places. And all those things they've taught me a lot of things, but they taught me a lot of failures too. And I think one time when I was talking to Doug, I was like, I have no ego in the game. All I want to do is make kids better. And then finally, it was actually through an article that I found from JT, put Doug's name out there. I just decided I should give him a call, and that's where it became. And then my understanding was the simpler you can do this, the simpler you can make it, the better chance we have at helping kids get better. And that's all I care about, is helping kids do the very best they can with whatever their athletic ability is. So thanks to all of you. Enjoy the connections we're going to make, and thank you to Doug.
For sure, brother.
John.
So I'm Jonathan Gellner. I'm Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I've obviously met you guys for the last couple of days, but about 2 years ago, started a podcast called Ahead of the Curve, and the main reason was just because I wanted to do more stuff like this, and I wanted to get to meet more people. And I think we all get in our small bubbles of where we see stuff on social media, or we are around the same people all the time, and so we get the same ideas just rotating back and forth all the time. So just being able to expand my knowledge, and then about a year ago got the opportunity to interview Doug and then come up here, and I always swung a certain way, and I was always up here with Griffey and just swinging with him for 15 minutes changed the way that I really started to think about how the body works in correlation with the swing. And so grateful to be here. Thankful for him, thankful for you guys being able to share so much information, because we're all here for the same reason, trying to make our kids better. And I appreciate you guys' time, and can't wait to see how well your kids do based on all the stuff that we talked about here today.
Thank you for what you do, man. Really.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
I don't think you can say enough about that.
Yeah, really.
Selflessness of
Unbelievable.
John and Hyatt, that they're not self-promoting.
Right. At all.
They just put the information out there. It's your turn, Matt.
Where were you 15 years ago? I needed it.
I was 12.
Shame on you, John.
I was 12.
All right, Mount Lawson, Missouri State University. Played there, played professionally for some time. Without the coaching that I got along the way, I wouldn't have had some of the opportunities that I had. And it was just a trickle down cycle of used coaching to get better. New problems came up as playing got more difficult. Sought out solutions to those problems. Doug was a major piece of that, and there's other coaches along the way too. But now I'm in a position where I can impact players, and so always seeking out, different ways and the best possible ways to make it easier on them, because the game's hard, and when you can impact somebody, especially in the batter's box, that sticks with them for the rest of their life, just like it has with me.
So, I'm Cass Kreitlow. I'm from Minnesota. I know of Doug because of Garrett Retka. So, I was running a baseball facility in Minneapolis called Never Zargan Baseball, and through some people on the internet, I found Garrett, and then moved to San Diego at the end of October. So, that gave me an opportunity to drive up here about 3 months ago, and I came here hoping to learn a little bit about the swing, and of course I did, and kind of opened my eyes, as well as probably you guys have seen. But importantly to me, I realized that he was asking me some very important questions. Like, I was saying things like, I'm not a very good athlete, I'm not very smart, but I listen to smart people, and he was just like, why are you saying that? And I know that he had said he doesn't like negativity in here, and if anything, I actually do listen to people as much as I like to talk. And I went home. On the way out, the last thing Doug said to me was, don't overthink your drive home. And I just couldn't believe how spot on that was. And so really, of course, he's helped me understand the swing, but he really made me understand how to think in a different way. And so that has had a dramatic impact on my life in the last 3 to 4 months since I met him. So this is much more than a swing for me, and I'm very appreciative of getting this opportunity to be around you guys. So thank you.
Well said, brother.
Would you run?
Yeah.
Ronnie Friedman from the University of Washington, and I'm a SoCal guy, kind of from down here. So kind of grew up in the game down here. Kind of grew up being just an athletic kid that played a lot of sports, and didn't really ever get taught how to necessarily swing correctly, I wouldn't say. Had an opportunity to play in college and played in pro ball for 6 years in the farm system with the Mariners. And throughout my time there, just taking pieces from everybody that could teach me as much as I wanted to take in. But what you find in the game is that there's a lot of different opinions and different philosophies. And that's why I think hitting's so unique. And one of the reasons I'm here is because I think it's important to understand what's out there and what's being taught, and try to take that and give it to your young guys, because every hitter is different, as we all know, and everybody's got different mentalities, different bodies, different ways of moving, or what they feel like is a different way of moving. So my goal coming here was just to kind of understand, because when you watch a hitter and you've been doing this long enough, you realize that looks right, or that looks simple or effortless, like we've been talking about. And what it really comes down to is just staying athletic and staying the way that the body wants to move. So yesterday and kind of following Doug and ahead of the curve has been really good for me to kind of understand, hey, as athletic and natural as we can make this thing is probably a good way to start. So and as we all know, that's the first piece of the puzzle when dealing with hitters, and then just understanding mentality and talking to other guys who've worked with really good people and hearing what they have to say about it is pretty cool. So.
I'm up. Toby DeMello, Sacramento State. I got a little bit different perspective. I've been coming here since I was 10 years old or so. So I've kind of got to see the foundational level of it, and how everything's progressed, and From Doug's, like, I guess his first breakthrough was probably with Marlin in 2013. It's been really special to be. I kind of feel like been in a small piece of it. Just to see where he started and where he is now, and how much. You guys see what he teaches now. I remember what he taught me when I was 10, and how much he's grown, and the little pieces that he believes in, and how he's evolved over the years. And I always remember that because I obviously am a little biased, but I consider him probably the best out there, and how much he's been willing to evolve and change kind of makes me realize that I always need to do that. And I think it's cool to be here, and obviously you guys know it's all about the players. So I appreciate you guys trying to get better, and I love this stuff. So.
I'm Eddie Villegas. I coach up the road at Calu. It's a small D3. I met Doug about a year ago, and plain and simple, he changed my life, man. I tell every kid that comes in here, if I was you when I was 10 years old, and I came in here, it'd been a different story. I mean, got to play in high school and college. Showed up for a tryout in Mexico, didn't have room for me, but he showed me so much, and I apply to everything that he's taught me, like positivity, athleticism, the right moves, to when I coach my little kids and my college kids, and he's helped change my whole perspective of baseball, and he's like a mentor to me. So really pumped to be here, really pumped to meet Doug.
Jeff Rottmeyer. I'm from Tulsa. I'm not from there. That's where I'm at now. I'm originally from Florida. I grew up in Clearwater. I grew up right there around where a ton of big leaguers at. Got to work with a lot of those guys. Kind of I've experimented everything. Occasionally I would do something wrong and put something together and really drive some baseballs. So, but there was just a lot of learning along the ways, trying different things. I got on the internet, the internet started coming out, getting on there, trying a lot of different things, agreeing with some things, not agreeing with some things. But I connected with Doug after talking more with Gelner about it. That was kind of a Wallenbach guy. But we were talking about the front shoulder and some of the things that he was teaching, and it made sense when I started to look at some of my hitters. And so having been here, we got here Thursday, and taking one swing and connecting going one swing, and I hit that ball really, really hard. I said, man, there's something to this. So I'm really interested in keep exploring the method and try and get it to teach my guys, and make them be here.
Great players, and his commitment to excellence does not stop. And I think people look at, being able to take a good player, because they've got a lot of good players there, but he's been able to take good players and make them great. Develop culture and just a winning attitude. Jeff?
Wow. I get up to that. Thanks, guys. No, I appreciate it. And everybody knows the key to coaching, having great players. I mean, it makes you look great. I'm going to sit down. I'm sorry, I can't stand up. I'm too old and my knees are too bad. But I appreciate you having me here. Funny thing was, my wife's like, "You're retired. What do you need to go for?" It's like, I'm not going to pass up this opportunity to sit here with some great guys that have the same ideas, or you just want to get better, and I'm always trying to get better. I've screwed up a lot of hitters over the years. I'm first to admit it. But I tell you what, I was fortunate enough that I guess either I or Doug, I don't know, somebody married into the family, and we made a connection. And I was on the grassroots. I saw Toby come in diapers, I think, and start hitting. And it was pretty cool to be there and be part of that. And like I think I was telling John, just being a fly on the wall, coming in and just listening, probably changed my whole coaching career and probably the development. I mean, I don't think my son probably is where he's at right now if I that connection never happened, and just revolving and getting better was huge. How old was Delman Young in that? That kind of
Oh,
opened
God,
my
Delman
eyes.
was 12 and 13.
12 and 13 when he first started coming in there, because his older brother, right, Dimitri,
Yeah.
was hitting in there, and just to watch them work with him as a, type of guy that I would get as a freshman was phenomenal. And I was very fortunate and lucky to be in on that and to watch the development, how they developed him as a hitter. And it was a pretty cool thing. I had a couple kids that were drafted their senior year, a kid named Cody Allen and a kid named Andy Lopez, way back when. But I remember working with those guys, and we were fortunate enough to have an indoor facility at the time. And we were working, developing, and I remember going over the T drill. We had a lot of T drills that I still use to this day that they were using with Delman. And there happened to be a Baseball America sitting on the table. And so I'm going through with the guys, and they were kind of, you're getting that resistance from them. I mean, they're reluctant and stuff. And I go, or I got this video, and I want to show you this video. And it was a video of Craig Wallenbrock and you working with Delman way back. It's old VHS or whatever. And I go, guys, you know who that kid they're working with? Go look at that Baseball America. He's on the cover. He was drafted first pick that year. Years later, a couple years later, and then from then I got instant buy-in and started really developing some hitters, and it was kind of a cool story. It was life-changing, and just everything kind of took off, and it's been awesome. And I know Doug doesn't need any self-promotion, but I've really believed in it from day one, and I've always talked about balance, hand path, and extension. That's all I talk about. Try to keep it simple. And that's all we just got to work on. And I had the philosophy of, if you're not going to hit, you're not going to advance. And I always wanted, that was my biggest goal, not to win games. Obviously, we all want to win, but I wanted to move guys on. I wanted to see somebody in the College World Series. That was always my biggest goal. And then guys started getting drafted and stuff, and it was pretty cool just to see that. But the funny thing is, my oldest one, Dylan, he's always been kind of reluctant. He'd listen to me, we'd go, but he had his own kind of viewpoint, and he really started buying in about 6 months ago. Don't you think so? Dylan kind of always, I didn't want to change a lot. I mean, he bought into stuff and he listened, but he really not 100% like I'm in, and I really saw that about 6 months ago. And he's had the best year he's ever had, and he just made the double all-star team. So that just says a lot of what could happen, and thanks to Doug and everything he's done for those guys and their influence. But thank all you guys for coming out. Appreciate just to be here sitting with all you guys, and it's really an honor, and that's all I got to say. I've talked too much.
From the days of being radical with what we thought, and literally being punked by a lot of people in the hitting establishment. I'm just talking at the college, high school level. And again, lucky to work with and around some of the better hitters, coaches. Craig Wallenbrock is an outstanding coach. We spent 14 years working alongside. More importantly, the hitters that we're dealing with, major league hitters, they teach us. You suddenly learn how that all works and how to apply it. But the most important thing we've got in life is our relationships. And I'm learning. I'm here because I need to learn more. That's what you guys hear. I'm learning because we never can stop learning. I admit freely to my biases. And I think when we look at a lot of the hitting being taught around the world, there is kind of what you call the old and the new, but they're really neither. But we still look at what we think, how somebody may have taught us to hit, how somebody we respect talked about hitting, and there are times I listen to ex-major leaguers or major leaguers talk about hitting, and I shudder because it doesn't translate. We've talked a lot about, well, this was a feel, this is how I felt to play. The problem is when it comes from such an authority, people, go ahead and say, oh, that's absolute. I'm going to do that. Hitting is tough. This is the toughest thing to do in sport. And I want you to think, how many people hit a golf ball and can do that well and fight for, years trying to perfect hitting a little ball standing at the same spot. And I think unless you've actually played baseball and suffered the failure that we're going to suffer as a hitter, it's tough to really understand what really happens in that batter's box. The ups and the downs. And this is going to continue to grow. I'm excited to see, on one hand, that there's a big change going. And, we've got a great representative group of coaches in here now at every level of the game, from the independents to some outstanding high school into the college. And then hitting coaches that work with, players up and down through that into the professional, that things are moving. Things are moving differently. And we talk about, I cannot tell you how many times we hear, man, how come we didn't have you, right? I think that's just like the evolution of the game. But the most important thing I see is all of us we have a duty. And that's we have to give back to the legacy of the game of baseball. And it means that we have to reach out and do the best job we can, because even today in this modern world of data and technology, there's a lot of bad stuff out there. And I'm not being presumptuous. I'm just saying the human body really works effectively one way. And we see what I call the Outlier Syndrome, where there are players that can do things and they're doing really well. But that may not be the absolute. They're able to, their bodies work this way, their DNA is such that this is what they do to be successful. I think one of the biggest problems we're going to see is on more of that Major League Baseball organizations. There's several of them that are going to come up with, this is a model hitter we're going to follow. Okay? Literally, this is the guy we want you all to be. And that's going to be their instruction at the Major League level, and that's going to be how we're going to develop, the youngest guys in the organization. And I think that's a very, very bad idea. Because one thing is, no hitters alike. There are similarities in what we're effective in a swing, but bodies move differently. We had a discussion a little bit earlier this morning about DNA, literally DNA, and there's this element they say, higher in Neanderthal. It doesn't mean the guy is a troglodyte, but it means that just the way that body works is different than somebody else. So they've done a lot of studies, and it's still kind of an emerging science. But we have to look at all these other aspects, because it's going to come down to how your body works. And that's a tough thing for us as coaches, because what do we want to do? We really want a simple program that everybody can buy into, the 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. And the trap that a lot of hitting coaches fall into is you have success, and a hitter just goes through the ceiling. But as every hitting coach in here knows, that what buoys us is our successes, but for every success, we're going to have a scuffle too. And it's tough that you have to understand that not everybody's going to be able to move up the next level, whether that be into high school to college, college into pros, every level of minor leagues into the big leagues. But that doesn't mean you don't stop trying to do the best you can. There are so many other variables involved, but the learning has to start, and it never, ever ends. But again, we want to be able to carry a player from the youngest all the way up. And yesterday we saw those kids on the tee, right? They're all swinging around and hitting the ball, and that's intuitive. If I bring someone off the street, hand them a bat, say hit the ball, I would probably bet a lot of money that they're going to bring that barrel around to hit the ball. Whether they've seen it or the perception of it. But when we've got to change fields and understanding that the minute we start doing that, the body's doing other things, and probably not to my best benefit, that we've got to kind of work against what's natural to the body. And we've talked about, we always pick on human reaction, human nature, surprise back to my shoulders. Even when I'm feeling good, where do I want to feel it? I feel my strength here because it's very evident to me because it's close. It's like, yeah, but I don't feel the strength here. And this strength far outweighs anything I can do up here. But I look at them as support mechanisms. Without this has to work alone. And we talked about, people use terms like dissociation, separation. I'd say the body works best working in concert. And we've talked a lot about the vision and everything else. God, I want to thank each and every one of you. I've had long relationships with some of you, and I'm developing new relationships with most of you. And, I want you to understand that we have to feed back. If we're working forward, we're making players better. We're not going to make, 100% adjustments or successes to every hitter we talk to, every player, because sometimes it goes a lot beyond just hitting. But the one thing that we want to reemphasize, this came up a couple of times in the conversation, is no negatives. And I'm not talking being Pollyannish about this. Like, oh, hey, great, you struck out 3 times, tomorrow says, another day. No, we have to find a way to reprocess how we handle failure, because we are going to fail. And nobody understands in baseball, I can do it right. I can absolutely hammer a tough pitch, and I get no statistical love. It could be a 3-2 pitch, and I hammer it, bases loaded, game on the line, and I do everything right, and I hammer a line drive, center fielder pulls it off the fence. We saw that last night, right? So, how can you say I was a failure, right? That's our game. So, by definition, our game really hammers at you mentally. And it's really difficult to try and keep that emotional and mental balance we need, not to mention the psychology of that. And we're going to pick on Jason a little bit later too, to spread his words of wisdom, because he's gone through obviously training and some applications of it that will probably be helpful to all of us too. Without further ado, Neil Walton, your turn up on the...
All right, well, my name is Neil Walton. I've played shortstop at Cal State Fullerton. I was a pretty good defender, and I was a talented player. Hitting-wise, in high school, I was a different swing to different pitches. Maybe good hand-eye coordination, poor, competition, so I could get away with that. And then, so different swings, which then getting into college where the competition was a little tougher. I had some struggles, and you got a lot of stuff when you get into college. So as far as what to do, I learned a lot from the players I was around, the coaches as well, but until I got to pro ball where I was able to fail a bunch and kind of learn about myself, it wasn't very natural for me. Defense, I could roll out of bed and do well defensively. I didn't have to take ground balls before spring training and I'd be fine, but I needed to hit every day just because it wasn't easy for me. So all that stuff I think has really helped me as a coach, because it wasn't easy for me hitting wise. I could crush batting practice, I was always good with that, but it took a while for me to improve and be competent as a hitter. Personally, that helps coaching wise. I got done playing, was doing a lot of sports psychology stuff, was around Ken Reviso a lot, was actually thinking about doing that, being a professor and consultant. Decided that I liked being around the competition and being a part of a team too much. So got into coaching, was at Fullerton as a manager in 2013, then Santa Barbara for 4 years, and now back at Fullerton for 2 years. So I really like the team stuff. I really like how everyone is unique and individual. The competition is cool, and a lot of my experience as a player and how it's tough, I think, helps coaching-wise. And I've been fortunate to be around a lot of really special players and coaches. So now I'm sitting here trying to learn. So there you go. Do I get up now and go back?
No, you take over, go.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Q&A period.
Sorry,
If you think, most of us are the product of a lot of coaches, players, people around the game, you know, where our journeys take us. And like I said, you know, you look at a point to be able to have some success or do some, you know, some good things.
It's an easy act to follow.
And, you know, you go back over the course of a lifetime and how the stars align, and next thing you know, you find yourself the ability to kind of work, making players get a little better, and then taking that to the highest level of the game. The one thing that stands out with me, with one person's comment, I mean, in like a 2-minute time, which resonated with me, which I've shared a couple of times with the media. There's a hitting coach, I think an undervalued and underestimated hitting coach named Greg Walker. At the time, he was with the Chicago White Sox. And we're sitting down on the couch at one of our get-togethers at, you know, the Ballyard. And he was talking about a rather cerebral hitter who got traded to the team. And the hitter asked him a question. And Greg turned and said, "I don't know. Let's go see how that works." And they went down the cage. Why that resonated with me is that sometimes people have to have the fast answer, right? But what hit me was realizing Greg already might have had an idea or an answer, but it would only work if he incorporated the player into the process and say, let's see how that works for you. And that, I think, the challenge that made things really change, not only in the way I mentally approach the game, was being able to integrate the player in each player, because every one of them is different. And it's funny, we talk about internal cues and external cues and all those other things, but it still comes down to that player at that time. And we know as players, when a guy's hot, right, what are you doing? You know, what bat are you using? Hey, do you mind? Right? There's this, almost this mysticism to somebody who's hitting the ball well. It's like we look at the best hitters in the game, and as I mentioned earlier, major league organizations are trying to have a model. This is what everybody's going to do, and it's a mistake. Because what they're doing may not translate to you. Some ideas may come across, but just because they're having success, sometimes we look at that saying, I've got to do that. I tell the story of being in at batting practice one day, and one of my players I was working with came over after BP, and I looked at him like, man, what was that? He goes, that's Ian Kinsler. Because at the time, Ian Kinsler was absolutely raking, you know. And it's funny because people think of major leaguers, but you think major leaguers aren't looking at guys that are on fire and like, what's that guy doing? Because there's always a mystery to his hitting. And it's like, I went, you're not Ian Kinsler. So I get that, you know, you're looking at things, but just to kind of put on the stance and the moves doesn't make it work. So again, the process is tough, and that's what I don't want. You know, parents are out there buying lessons and 1, 2, 3 cookie cutting and hit the ball hard here, and now you've got the evolution of the data. Ooh, look, the exit velocity is up to 100, you know. Man, they're going to get signed tomorrow. And wow, you got that 22-degree launch angle, you're launching ball in the cage, and how great is that? But there's only one time that it matters, and every one of you knows that because we've been there. It's when we're in that box. It's when we're in that box facing some guy with some serious spin and, you know, some filthy off-speed pitch, you know. That's when it matters. You know, but more importantly, the numbers don't work for us. We are going to fail. And we have to get up every day after failure we have to go back up after. We have tough pitch, we gotta get right back in the box. Tough at bat, we gotta get right in the box the next time. Tough day at the yard, we gotta get right in the box the next day. And I don't think the average person who's not played this game can ever understand how tough it is. And then we talk about that mental drain. Jeff talked about his son, but I think what had to happen is we listen to people that we perceive as authorities. You know, they're really good at what they do. And we put our well-being in their hands. And then suddenly you take a step back and it's like, I'm not doing so well. What's going on? And there's a point of what I call buying in. There's also the process of, you know, your relationship with your players. But it starts with communication. And my communication with every player is going to be different. You know, their personalities are different. And as coaches, we're the adults. We have to change. We can't sit there and say, you're going to do it my way. This is how we run things. I think that's where coaches learn, even like in a head coaching position, fail. We have got to adapt. We're the adults. We have to adapt to them. They don't know how to adapt to us. They may not know how to adapt to us. You know, we have to keep fresh. We have to keep going. We have to be able to reach these young men, these boys. So, that being said, we think about concepts like timing. You know, we hear all the common phrases, get down early, right? I hate that. We talked yesterday, get down early. What does that mean? It actually puts the wrong connotation in my mind. That might work for somebody. But to me, I think more people get tripped up by that because it's like, get down early, get your foot down early, right? Which then becomes, we've talked about, front side move, which not going to help me. It's actually going to blow up my timing a little bit because if I have a front side move, am I going to race timing or am I going to hover timing? I'm going to race because I'm here ready. I'm in the contact point from here, from field, rather than a contact point from here with these. Does that kind of make sense? But we have to say, what are we here for? What level, what are we trying to do? So it's really kind of easy to say, I'm building a foundation. You know, I'm taking that to another level. You know, trying to see where hitters are. And I remember a statement made to me from another hitting coach. You know, I knew him well, so I was being a little bit critical of what he was teaching. And he just turned to me and he said, well, you know, this guy can do things, right? And you think how many infielders you played with, great infielders, right? Soft in the hitting department. Why? You realize the athlete's there. The motor's there. You know, it's just running in the wrong direction. You know, so that being said, Jason, give us a little bit on sports psychology.
Kim Revisa was my grad school, one of my grad school mentors. I went to Temple University and studied under Dr. Sachs for a while. But, you know, I think it's interesting. One of the things that I loved about Doug that really got me, not just in the physicality of the swing, but from the mental side, is balance, right? Let's talk about balance. You know, being balanced in the swing is great, and it's essential, but are we balanced mentally and emotionally as a hitter? I mean, I think you can see it as a little kid all the way up. This is the toughest game in the world, period. Period. It's the toughest, but what are we doing from a mental side to get hitters ready to go? You know, a big thing that I teach my hitters are, you know, what are we doing in the dugout to get ourselves ready to go? So I'm a big peak state guy. I think that, you know, we talk about the zone and flow and things like that. It's not an all or nothing thing, okay? You're not either in the zone or out. That's a big misconception. You know, it's something that you can feel and get to a point where, okay, are we getting space from our emotions and our thoughts? Because we can't, you're not always going to be like, I'm going to rake today. I'm there. You're not going to always feel that way. So how are you going to perform when you're not feeling that way? That's the key. That's what makes a great hitter. Can we perform when I have a lot of questions, I'm not really sure if I can do this, right? Can we get grounded in our process? So as a hitting coach, I think that we can start using things to get our hitters ready to do that, to create what I like to consider an optimal environment to perform. Okay, so everybody's got their own internal landscape. Doug's got his, You know, Jonathan's got his. What do we have to do? Are you an overactive thinker, right? Are you a guy that really feels in your gut? So what I like to teach my students is we talk about breathing, and breathing's one good step. But get into a process, just as you have a routine as a hitter, have a routine as an inner hitter. So what are we doing in the dugout, right? Don't just, okay, oh, John, you're up, let's go, man. And then you're in the hole and you're ready to go. What are you doing? Let's think. Are we taking our breaths? Are we checking in? How am I feeling right now? Am I too amped up? Do I need to slow my breathing out? Am I not amped up enough? Do I need to pick my breathing up a little bit? So self-awareness is huge. Are we teaching our hitters to be self-aware? Not just, okay, what is he throwing? But what am I feeling? Am I ready to compete right now? Am I ready to get in there in a good, balanced environment physically and mentally, where I think that if you start, the big thing is hitters try to start on the on-deck circle, right? They try to get themselves locked in. You gotta, to create a peak state, especially in hitting, right? Because let's talk about, like, if you're Steph Curry. You're playing the game, you know, you're on fire. Everybody's, we got any hoops guys out here when you're just banging, right, all day long. But you got the flow of the game. As a hitter, you're only hitting for, God, it could be 30 seconds to 3 minutes and you're out, right? So you've got to pave the way before you get there. You can't get in here and expect to be ready to go. You got to be paving a way, right? Way before that point. So for me, it starts in the hole, okay? Start your breathing in the hole. What are your thoughts? Let's not get attached with thoughts. Maybe we stick with one thought, right? Balance. Maybe balance is your thought. What's your plan? Know your plan, okay? If we're looking maybe inside half where this guy is pounding inside, okay, let's keep it simple. But have your process. Okay, every hitter's gonna have a different process, like we talked about. Doug says individuals. Every hitter's gonna have something different. So start in the hole, then you go to your on-deck routine. What's your routine, right? What's your routine? Are you feeling your breaths, maybe having the one mantra? I talk a lot about getting space. Doug talks about spacing here. You're not your thoughts and you're not your emotions. That's a big thing for an athlete. The best athletes I've ever talked to or worked with, they can create space. So I'm not my frustration. I'm not my fear. Get space on it. Get space. You're feeling that, but that's not who you are. You know how you know that? Because it goes, right? Right? You get angry, it goes away. So you can't be your anger. You got to be able to get space. So one of the things I teach is that like hitting is more of a mindfulness activity. So if you can actually create a little space when you're hitting from your thoughts and let them pass. Okay, Sean Green, you guys remember Sean Green? Wrote a great book, hit 4 home runs in a game, great hitter. He studies Zen. I studied with Ken Viz. I also worked with a Zen monk for a while, believe it or not, a former Zen monk, just to try to get perspective. And the one thing he taught me was about creating space. And it's a great book, The Way of Baseball, Sean Green. And he talks about how he actually became a great hitter when he used the tee as a meditation tool. So he would start breathing, put the ball down, and then he would inhale on the load and exhale on the swing. And he created a mantra for himself, okay? And that's helped to pave the way to get into a peak state. So there's one thing that he did. Great book if you ever want to read it. I mean, it's really good. So that's the big thing I teach is how do we create space? Does anybody here meditate? Okay, Jonathan, you meditate, right? It's a big thing in athletes now. I mean, most athletes are doing something other than just visualization or progressive relaxation. Meditation's huge because it helps you create that space. Create the space. You know, when you're in a traffic jam, can you calm yourself down? That's what I tell my athletes all the time. Well, I don't have time for the mental game. Okay, great. Your whole life is a mental game, right? So if you're in traffic and you're getting pissed off, can you calm yourself down? Can you find a way to get calm? Because if you can't do it there, how the hell are you going to do it in a ball game in front of 8,000 people? You're not. So start with the small things. Okay, my girlfriend pissed me off today. Can you get some space from those emotions? Can you create a little space there and let those pass and just observe and say, okay, I'm angry, but I'm not my anger. Let it go. So I think if you can start there in your everyday life, man, you'd be surprised what a foundation you create. And then you're able to get in a ball game and get in those situations and start finding space and creating that internal environment. Well, hey, I'm balanced in my swing like Doug taught me, and I'm also balanced inside. So that's pretty much what I teach in a nutshell. I don't want to bore you guys, but yeah.
Is anybody bored?
No.
So I think
We have talked about that.
Okay.
Remember what he just did? What did he just do? What did you just do? I don't want to bore you guys.
Oh yeah, I know. It's, yeah. Right. The negativity. There you go. The mental sports psychology guy right out the window.
That's great. And again, so many simple things. That's why I said balance is more than just a word about physicality.
It's huge.
One thing, like I said, we talked about timing. And thanks, man, you led right up to it. We're in the dugout all the time, man. And the thing is, we have the ability to do things a pitcher can't do. We can sit there and begin our dance. We can get rhythm and timing. Every time he gets up, it's more between innings. Every time he's pitching to one of my teammates, I can be dialing in his timing. And it doesn't have to be a full-on move to timing. It can just be the feel, go. So I can be actually having a conversation, yeah, man, that was a tough play. But at the same time, I'm focusing on my go and just letting it get built in. So by the time, like I said, by the time you're in the hole and you're coming up at the bottom of those steps, it's like, maybe like, before I get to the plate. By the time I get to the plate, I've had, unless I'm the leadoff hitter, and I've only had 8 warm-up pitches, I've had time already kind of lock in a little bit of a timing move. Make sure everything's right, you know? I don't have to search for it at the plate. I'm getting in my comfort zone. And suddenly realize, you know, we've all got, has anybody ever been uncomfortable at the plate? Yeah, right? That's the worst. You know, then, like I said, it's like fake it till you make it. But I realize, why did that start that way? You know? I should be able to work through that most of the time. I'm not gonna say things don't happen. But, as JP said, at that point, step back, relax, I'm good. I'm prepared. I did what I needed to do. But the thing for a hitter is to be able to turn and realize, at this point I'm in here, all the work's done. The process is 100% behind me. It's going to work if I let it. Our mind will take us to catastrophe. You know, something happens, next thing you know, my life's over. You know, think of the smallest problem you think you had, it's like, we make it worse immediately. So it puts us in a point of tension and frustration. And it's the same thing I tell my hitters. You are not allowed frustration when we work. I see frustration, you gotta get out of the gate. Because I cannot resolve an issue if I'm frustrated, because I'm emotional now. And I'm not saying you have to be a rigid, you know, robotic beast. No, it's just a matter of just control it. Okay, I'm okay. So a lot of times I tell people, okay, step back, like, I'm okay. I've done this 1,000 times. You know, I'm good. Because we get this little irrational thought, and next thing we know, it pushes us right off the precipice, right off the cliff. And we come back and like, what happened? So the tough thing about psychology is it's individual too. And that's where you get a guy who says, this is what I do. And it's like worse than hitting. Because now we're deep in a human consciousness where you've got to tell, you know, 8-year-olds have it too. And you can kind of really start 10-year-olds, you can start them thinking, but you're not going to have that full depth. But begin their walk up the staircase. But the way we process information and the way we feel, we've got to find that works for us. You know, we've talked about, you know, space. One guy's idea of space may be completely different than the others.
Great point.
And then what we try to do is we try to grasp onto what you're saying and say, I want that space. Like, tough thing is like, you got to find your own.
That's right.
You got to find your own. And we also know players. We've all played with them, and I think they've got a couple of here in this room that are guys that, man, they play well when they're just like, they're ready to go.
Right.
Come on. And then there's a guy that's a little bit different, plays better under this circumstance. Everybody plays under a different level. When we train, a lot of times, I cannot share the blessings I've had to work with some of the players I have because they're my best teachers. They're my best teachers.